stop blaming your salary. The reason your money keeps vanishing has almost nothing to do with how much you make. And I can prove it with two people who earn the exact same paycheck and somehow end up in two completely different universes. My name's Finn, and I've spent a slightly embarrassing amount of my life obsessed with one question. Why do some people quietly pull away from everyone else while the rest run as hard as they can and stay in the exact same spot? Give me about 20 minutes and you'll walk away with 6 specific decisions that separate those two groups, plus $1 amount, smaller than a beat-up used car, that the day you hit it puts you ahead of half the country. But I have to be honest with you about that whole ahead of 97% line first, because it's hiding something. And if I don't clear it up right now, none of the rest will land. Here's the catch. If you take ahead of 97% of people literally, you're talking about the top 3% of American households by wealth. And that club starts somewhere north of $7 million in net worth. Now, I'm not going to look you dead in the eye and promise you $7 million in the next 20 minutes, because then I'd be a liar, and you'd be right to close this video. That version takes decades and, a little luck. But that's not the version that should keep you up tonight, because there's a second way to read it that's almost insultingly easy. And once you see the real numbers, getting ahead stops feeling like climbing a mountain and starts feeling like the rest of the country tripped at the starting line and just decided to stay down there. So let me show you exactly where that floor is. The typical American household has a net worth around 200 grand, which sounds pretty healthy until you find out what's holding it up. Home equity, and people in their 60s take the houses out of the math and zoom in on anyone under 40, and it gets bleak in a hurry. A huge slice of younger adults have a net worth roughly equal to a decent weekend trip, and plenty of them are actually underwater, owing more than they own. So the real bar isn't 7 million, it's this. Around 4 in 10 Americans say they couldn't cover a surprise $500 bill without reaching for a credit card. $500, that's one brake job, or one bad vet visit. So if all you do is quietly stack a few $1,000s in a plain savings account and never touch it, you have already done something more than half this country physically cannot do. A boring number, sitting in a boring account, and you're suddenly standing in front of half of America. But here's the weird part. Saving the money was never the hard bit. The actual reason almost nobody gets ahead, has nothing to do with their income. And I can show you with a guy who earns double what you do and is still dead broke. This is the single most misunderstood idea in all of money. So I'm going to say it slowly. What you earn is not what you keep. And what you keep is the only thing that matters. Picture a guy. We'll call him Damon. Damon pulls in way more than you do. He's got the lifted truck, the boat that touches water maybe twice a summer, the watch, the house with the kind of kitchen that shows up in magazines. You'd run into Damon at a barbecue and just assume he'd crack the whole thing wide open. But Damon, in the coldest accounting sense there is broke. Every single dollar he earns already has a name on it, before it even lands. The truck payment, the boat payment, the mortgage on a house he mostly bought to look like a guy who'd made it. He is one skipped paycheck away from the entire thing coming down. Damon doesn't own his life. His payments own him. And there's a name for the exact trap he fell into. A trap that's quietly wrecked more almost rich people than any market crash in history. It's called lifestyle creep. And it works like this. You get a raise, and instead of banking the difference, you upgrade. Bigger apartment, nicer car, groceries that cost what going out used to. 6 months later, your account feels just as thin as before. Except now, every problem you have is more expensive. You didn't get free. You just upgraded the cage. And here's the part that really stings. Because even the people who do invest find a brand new way to trip over their own feet. A research firm called Dalbar has tracked how regular investors actually behave for decades, and they keep landing on the same brutal finding. The average investor earns noticeably less than the very funds they own. So sit with that for a second. You buy the fund goes up, and somehow you personally walk away with less than the fund made. How is that even possible? Well, because the second the market drops, fear grabs the steering wheel. People sell when they're scared, then pile back in once everything feels safe again, which means they buy high and sell low, over and over, and over and over again, forever. But it isn't only the panic sellers losing this game. Even the professionals, the people paid specifically to win it, lose too. And the numbers there are almost funny. There's a famous study by two researchers named Barber and Dodine who dug through thousands of real brokerage accounts and found that the most active traders, the ones constantly buying and selling and trying to outsmart everybody, they got absolutely smoked by the people who just sat on their hands and did nothing. They literally titled the paper, "Trading is Hazardous to Your Wealth," which is about as savage as finance professors are allowed to get. And then there are the suits. Every year, a scorecard called SPIVA checks how many professional fund managers actually beat a basic index fund. And over a 20-year stretch, roughly 9 out of 10 of them lose to a fund a computer could run on autopilot. 9 out of 10. The pros, with the fancy degrees and the expensive screens, lose to the boring robot. And strangely, that's the best news you'll hear all day, because it means the thing standing between you and getting ahead was never a finance degree or some secret stock-picking gift. It's behavior. And behavior, unlike the market, is the one thing on this entire list you actually control. Which finally brings us to the 6 decisions. And the first one matters way more when you're starting out than your salary ever will. Decision 1. When you're starting from close to nothing, your savings rate is the whole game. Not how much you make, not what the market does, just how much of each paycheck you actually hang on to. Here's why that's true. When your account is small, what you put in completely drowns out whatever the market gives you. Like, if you've got $1,000 invested and the market has a monster year, up 10%, you made $100. But if you just save an extra $200 a month, that's $2,400 a year. You just beat the market's entire year without picking a single stock, purely by keeping more of your own money. Now, I already know the comeback, because I get it every single time. Easy for you to say, Finn. I don't have 20% lying around. I'm barely making rent. And for some people right now, that's just true. And I'm not going to insult you by pretending it isn't. So here's the reframe. The goal was never 20% tomorrow. The goal is to start with whatever you've got, even $25, and then funnel every future raise, every tax refund, straight into the machine before your spending gets a chance to swell up and swallow it. Most people let their lifestyle eat every raise they ever get. You're going to do the exact opposite, but your own savings is only the first lever. The next decision is your boss literally trying to hand you free money. And most people somehow say, no thanks. Decision 2 is the closest thing to free money that exists on planet Earth, and people leave it on the table by the billions. If your job offers a 401k match, that's your employer saying, for every dollar you put in, up to a limit, I'll throw in one of mine. That is an instant, guaranteed 100% return. Your money doubles the second it lands, and there is no investment anywhere that reliably does that. And yet, about 1 in 4 people who could grab that match just don't bother. That's turning down a guaranteed raise because claiming it meant filling out one form. Don't be that person, grab every cent of it. Decision 3. Before you go wild throwing money into investments, you wipe out any high-interest debt, and I mean credit cards specifically. The average credit card rate right now is sitting north of 20%. The stock market averages around 10 a year. So if you're carrying a card balance at 22% while trying to earn 10% in the market, you are running a shredder in one hand and a printer in the other. Paying off a 22% debt is mathematically identical to earning a guaranteed 22% return, tax-free, with zero risk, and nothing else even comes close. So that gets knocked out first. Okay, everything we've done so far is defense, patching holes, stopping the bleeding. And patching holes keeps you afloat, sure, but staying afloat was never the goal. The next 3 decisions are where you finally stop plugging and start building. Decisions 4, 5, and 6 all live in the same place. The exact order your money should flow, from top to bottom. First, a small starter emergency fund so one flat tire doesn't throw you straight back into credit card debt. Then you grab that full employer mash, the free money we just talked about. Then you wipe out the high interest debt. Then comes decision 4. You open a Roth IRA. The account everybody agrees you should have, and almost nobody ever actually opens. A Roth is a gorgeous little thing. You put in money you've already paid taxes on, it grows for decades, and then you never pay tax on it again. Not on the growth, not when you pull it out in retirement. For 2026, you can put $7,500 into one. Decision 5. Once that Roth is full, you head back to the 401k and push past the match, sheltering more of your income from taxes, up to $24,500 in 2026. And decision 6. If you somehow max all of that out, you're already beating almost everyone alive, and you simply open a regular taxable brokerage account and keep buying the same boring index funds. That's the entire staircase. Match, debt, Roth, max the 401k, then taxable. Most people never even find the bottom step, but this whole staircase is useless without the one ingredient that makes every bit of this worth doing. And it's a number so big, it almost looks like a typo. Here's the math that should change the way you look at every dollar you spend. Say you're 25 and you put just $200 a month, less than a lot of people drop on takeout, into a plain index fund. And you do absolutely nothing else. No timing, no clever picks. You just keep buying, month after month, at the market's long-run average of around 10% a year. By the time you're 65, you're sitting on roughly $1.2 million. And out of your own pocket, across those 40 years, you put in under $100,000. The other $1.1 million, that's compound interest doing the heavy lifting while you sleep. Bump it up to $500 a month, and that number balloons past $3 million. But here's the most important number in this whole video, and I need you to actually feel this one. Watch what waiting does. Say our guy finally gets his act together at 35 instead of 25. So, just 10 years later, we'll call him Theo. Same $500 a month. By 65, Theo lands around $1.1 million, which sounds amazing. Right up until, wait, you set him next to Maya, who started at 25 and is sitting on over $3 million. So a 10-year head start on the exact same monthly deposit is worth roughly $2 million. And here's the kicker. Theo didn't put in $2 million less than Maya. He put in about $60,000 less, but because he stole 10 years away from compound interest, that gap explodes to $2 million. Waiting isn't a small mistake. It's the single most expensive thing you'll ever do. And it gets worse the longer you stall, because the money you invest earliest gets the most time to snowball. A dollar you invest in your 20s is worth wildly more than the same dollar dropped in at 50. And there's one quiet little leak that can drain a chunk of all of this, without you ever once noticing it. It's fees. The fund you pick matters, and specifically, what it charges you. Buy a cheap index fund, and you might pay 3 or 4/100%. Buy some actively managed fund your bank gently nudges you toward, and you might pay a full 1% or more. Sounds like nothing, right? 1%. But stretch that over 30 years on a growing balance, and that 1% can quietly eat north of $200,000 out of your final number. All so you can come out behind the cheaper fund. So keep your fees on the floor and let the boring fund win. Okay, take a breath, because I want to step off the numbers for a second, since the math can make you miss the bigger thing, and this part. This part matters more than any stat I've thrown at you. If you've been sitting there this whole time with a low hum of panic, feeling like you started too late, like everyone's already miles ahead, like you blew it before you even started, I need you to actually hear this. You are not behind. You've been playing a game nobody ever handed you the rules to, and then quietly blaming yourself for losing it. That's not a character flaw. That's a setup. And here's the proof the bar is real and reachable. There's a study of over 10,000 actual American millionaires, and it quietly torches almost everything pop culture has ever told you about getting rich. Around 8 out of 10 of them didn't inherit a dime. They built it themselves. And their most common jobs weren't celebrities or tech founders. They were engineers, accountants, and teachers. Teachers, people on completely ordinary salaries. And their number one path to getting there? Boring, consistent investing in a workplace retirement account over a long stretch of time. That's it. No secret, no perfect timing. Just the boring decisions made early and then time. The way out of the 97% isn't hidden. It's just boring. And boring doesn't go viral. Nobody's out here making a hit video about quietly maxing a Roth for 30 years. But that unglamorous, deeply uncool discipline is the actual cheat code. And now, you're holding it. So let me tell you what that cheat code actually buys you. Because it isn't a yacht, it's better than that. And it's a whole lot quieter. What it buys is checking your account balance without that little flinch. It's the warning light coming on in your car and your first thought being, what now? Instead of, please, not this month. It's booking the flight for your friend's wedding without doing quiet math about it in your head for 3 days first. It's looking at a job that's been draining the life out of you for 2 years and realizing you could actually walk away because you've built up enough that no is finally a sentence you can afford to say. That's the real prize hiding behind 97%. Not a garage full of toys, just a life that stops squeezing you. A calm one. And it is so much more within reach than the people trying to sell you a shortcut want you to believe. So let's check back in on Theo and Maya one last time, because I promised you their ending, and the gap between them is the entire point. Same job, same paycheck, same boring Tuesday all those years ago. Here's the scoreboard now. Maya set everything up on autopilot in her very first month, and then, basically never thought about it again. Her savings came out automatically. Her match got grabbed automatically. Her index funds got bought automatically. She wasn't more disciplined than Theo on any given day. She was just smart enough to take herself out of the equation entirely. She made the decision one time, and after that, automation made it for her. Every single month, that's the real secret weapon of every quiet millionaire. They make the choice exactly once, and then they yank their own willpower out of the picture. Theo, meanwhile, he kept waiting for the perfect moment. He'd start when the next raise came in, when things settled down, when he felt a little more sure, and that enrollment form just sat there in his inbox, unread, year after year, always something he'd finally deal with this weekend. And 10 years of weekends came and went the way they always do. Theo isn't lazy, and he isn't dumb. Theo is most people. He just never made the boring decisions. And the boring decisions are the entire ball game. And here's the good news I want to leave you with. You get to pick which one of them you are, starting today. Not next paycheck, not next year, today. Because we just ran the math on what waiting costs, and it is absolutely savage. You don't need a bigger salary. You don't need to understand bonds or read a single earnings report in your life. You automate a small amount into a cheap index fund. You grab your free match. You kill your high interest debt. And then you work up the almost superhuman patience to do nothing at all, while compound interest quietly turns you into a wealthy person. That's the thing 97% of people never do. Not because they can't, but because nobody ever handed them the map. Well, now you've got it. So pick one decision off this list, the easiest one you can find, and actually do it before your head hits the pillow tonight. If you want me to show you the exact first account to open with your very first $100, that video is playing right now.